This video is going to show you how to solve inequalities. A few steps that you need to know for solving inequalities. The first thing is it's going to get solved the same exact way as a regular equation. So I'm going to highlight that. Use the same steps as a normal equation. We're going to put all the variables on one side. Then we're going to put all the constant numbers on the opposite side. This one is new for you guys because this is not like a normal equation. When you get to the variable at the end, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, then you must flip the inequality symbol. Okay? Then the last thing we're going to look at is graphing the equation on the number line. And we're going to look and see if you should have an open circle or a closed circle. So now when we solve an inequality, you can say it verbally. We can use symbols or we can use a graph. So verbally, I would just read out the words. Symbolically, I would just use symbols, the variable, and then my inequality symbol followed by the number. And then graphically, I'm going to either have an open or a closed circle above a number, and then I'll either shade to the left or I'll shade to the right. If your symbol is only the less than or only the greater than, you will have an open circle when you graph on the number line. If your inequality sign also says equal to, if it has the line underneath it, that's when you do a closed circle. So when we graph it, we'll shade in the circle. It can be the greater than or equal to, or it can be the less than or equal to. Those have closed circles. Another thing that you need to know is that at the very bottom, remember we said this letter R, that stands for real numbers. And sometimes there's a solution where all real numbers work. And so our graph would just be this bold line with arrows going in both directions. Then a circle with no line through it means there's no solution, and you would have no graph because there's not a number that makes it true. Our first example says 4x plus 2 is less than x minus 2. The first thing I'm going to do to solve is just like I do in a normal equation. I'm going to draw a line down the center to separate my left side from my right side. I'm going to isolate the variable. I'm going to zoom in so I can have a better space to write. Isolate the variable, so I'm going to get rid of this variable that's on the left side. So this disappears, and whatever I do on this side, I have to do to this side. So the opposite of positive x is negative x. If I put negative x on the right side, I need to put negative x on the left side. I'm going to draw my line. I can go ahead and bring down the positive 2. I can go ahead and bring down the negative 2. I can keep my symbol. And then I'm going to look over here. This says 4 minus x, 4x minus x, or 4 minus 1. So that would just be 3x. And then I need to bring down the plus. So 3x plus 2 is less than negative 2. Now the next step is my variable is good, but I have a variable and a constant, so I need to get rid of this constant number. The opposite of positive 2 or add 2 is subtract 2 or negative 2. Whichever way you like to say it, they mean the same thing. I'm going to draw my line. I can go ahead and bring down my 3x. I can bring down my symbol. And then now I need to say negative 2 minus 2. When you subtract, you go to the left on a number line, and that makes it even more negative. So that would be negative 4. Now, here's where I need you to pay close attention. My last step is divide by the number that's in front of x. So the number that's in front of x is positive 3. So I'm dividing by positive 3. Here is where I need to take a look. When I do this last step, if I divide by a positive, then the sign stays the same. So I'm going to write that in. Divide by a positive number. I'm going to use the number sign. The inequality sign stays the same. So I do not flip the sign, it stays the same. Now I can say that my answer is going to be x. Since I divided by a positive 3, this symbol does not flip, it stays the same. So I would write is less than negative 4/3. Okay, now I'm ready to show that on a graph. So over here on this side, I'm going to start out by saying x is less than negative 4/3. Or I could simplify that. It means the same thing as negative 1 1/3, which is probably easier to graph on a number line. Looking at this symbol, I know two things. One, I'm going to have an open circle. And two, I'm going to shade to the left because the arrow is pointing to the left. I'm going to make a little number line, put arrows on both sides, make a couple lines. The number I'm looking for is negative 1 1/3. So I'm just going to put in negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1. Negative 1 1/3 is going to be between negative 1 and negative 2. It's an open circle because it's not equal to. And then I shade to the left so I can just draw a line going this way and put an arrow at the end because it continues and goes on forever in the less than direction. Okay, here's another example. This one's a little smaller. There's going to be less to do, but I'm starting out the same way. I'm going to draw my line down the center. If I look at the equation, 6x plus 12 is greater than or equal to 8. This side has a variable and a constant. This side just has a constant. So all I need to do is get rid of this one so the variable is isolated. So the opposite of add or positive 12 is negative 12 or take away 12, whichever way you like to say it. I can bring down my 6x. The 12s cancel out. I'm going to carry down the symbol greater than or equal to. Then 8 minus 12 is negative 4. Now my last step is divide by the number that's in front of the variable. So I'm going to divide by 6. And remember, this is the spot where I'm going to look and see. If I divide by a positive, it stays, the symbol stays the same. So my symbol stays the same because I divided by positive 6. I could say my answer now is x is greater than or equal to negative 4/6, or that can simplify to be negative 2/3. Okay, now I'm going to graph that. It said x is greater than or equal to, x is greater than or equal to negative 2/3. I know a couple things. First of all, I know it's going to be a closed circle. And I also know that I'm going to shade to the right this time. So I'm going to draw a number line, put arrows on both ends, put a couple of lines on it. So this time is negative 2/3, and I'm going to shade to the right. So I'm going to put the numbers of negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 2/3 is between 0 and negative 1. It's a closed circle this time, so I'm going to shade it in. And it says I should shade to the right because it was greater than or equal to. And then put an arrow on the end because it does continue forever in that direction. Okay, the last one. This one I need you to pay real close attention to because I know something extra is going to happen. I'm going to draw a line down the center to separate the left and right. I need to isolate the variable. On this side, I have a variable and a constant. I have a variable and a constant. So what I want to do is I'm going to get rid of this 4x. The opposite of positive 4x is negative 4x. So I need to do the same thing on both sides, negative 4x and negative 4x. When I look on this side, negative 5x minus 4, that actually makes negative 9x. I can now go ahead and bring down my add 45. I can bring down the symbol of less than or equal to, and I can bring down positive 18. Now I have a variable and a constant. I need to get rid of this constant number. So the opposite of positive 45 or add 45 is negative 45. I need to put a negative 45 on this side as well. I can go ahead and bring down my negative 9x. I can bring down my symbol of less than or equal to. And then positive 18 minus 45, the bigger number is negative, so that means the overall answer is going to be negative, and it's 27. Negative 27. Okay, my last step is to divide by the number that's with the variable, so I'm dividing by negative 9. And this is the point where I have to look and double check. If I divided by a negative number, then I must flip my inequality sign. So this time, I am going to divide by negative 9. So flip the inequality symbol. Okay, I'm going to draw an arrow over here. So again, because I'm dividing by a negative number, that means I have to flip this symbol and make it go the opposite direction. So when I write my answer here in a second, x not less than or equal to anymore, I'm flipping the sign, greater than or equal to, and then negative 27 divided by negative 9 is positive 3. Now this is the answer I'm going to graph. So I'm going to scoot over. X is greater than or equal to positive 3 is what I need to try and graph. X is greater than or equal to positive 3. I know two things right away. I'm going to have a closed circle, and I'm going to shade to the right. I'm going to draw a number line, put a couple lines on it. This says I'm going to be at 3, and then I'm going to shade to the right. So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many lines you have. I set a closed circle on 3. So draw your circle, shade it in, and shade to the right of that point. Make sure you put an arrow on the end of it because it can go forever in that direction.